All right. Welcome to the Better Game Podcast. We got the internet fixed. We're ready to go. Who knew that
Hey,
would be the hardest? The hardest part of this is just going to be the internet, right?
I mean, yeah, I think it's going to be, absolutely the worst. So, apologies ahead of time. First episode, so we'll get there.
Well, we've been friends for 30 years and we've had little issues, So it's fitting that the internet doesn't work. We're good at fixing things.
Yeah,
Knock
that's why
on
we're
wood,
here.
right? So
A lot of knocking.
I met you in high school. We've been teammates. We coached together. We lived together in college.
Yep.
What else?
High school, college, lived together, coached. We both have had our journeys. We're both dads. We went to the same teacher conference where eventually we both got a job that allowed us to get to where we are. Yeah, like we both are still avid sports fans. University of Michigan, what's up? Yeah, man, we have a lot of overlap. A lot of overlap. We both are mentors to kids and young adults.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a very similar mindset. We like to learn. We like to grow, and always looking for inspiration and knowledge. So I was thinking it'd be cool to have a podcast where we could talk about lessons learned and things that could benefit other people. Like you and I both kind of look through the lens a lot about through parenting, through coaching for kids. I'm always looking kind of like, how does this apply to my students, my team, whoever, and how can they use it?
Yeah. I think didn't mean to cut you off. There's a lot of overlap between the things that we've learned in the past from childhood to young adulthood. I think being a teacher is something that sets you up for such success in a lot of things. And that's something we both had to, we've had to just barrel through, which is learning how to actually control a classroom and effectively get a point across to some young kids who at times don't want to talk to us. And we still have to push through all that stuff. So I think it's an amazing quality. And I think that quality ties over into a lot of other things that we do. So I think that's something this
Well,
podcast is going to be about.
I mean,
Quite possibly.
coaches and teachers, if everybody thinks about their favorite coaches and teachers, they're some of the most influential people in anybody's life. And you and I are both the type of people that want to be really good at whatever we do. And I know we probably have if we talked about our high school teachers, we'd probably name the same people.
Definitely.
But relationships are this podcast. I really want to talk about relationships a lot. Friendships, parenting, all the different relationships. And I figured a good way to start would talk about our coaches and teachers. Like, could you talk about one of your favorite coaches or teachers growing up and what you learned from them?
Yeah. There's so many different influencers throughout our lifetime that they've done all the things and helped us in certain areas. But Brian Townsend is my high school basketball coach. And I would say he's a guy that for the past almost 30 years has been someone who consistently shows up in the moment to help me out in that situation. And it's usually coming back to one of the three P's that he always mentioned. And the biggest one for me is perseverance. There's so much life. There's so many things. There's so many failures. We don't do things sometimes because we don't want to try things because we're afraid of failure. And then while things are actually evolving, we don't want to continue because we think we're going to fail. And the idea of perseverance is something that he has consistently talked to me about. And it looks differently in every situation. So often the message is still the same, hey, you got to persevere. But we talk about what does that look like in the situation? What are the options? Let's take a pause and, give yourself some grace, and then reevaluate and proceed. So that's something he's taught me that I've been able to talk to my students, my players, my kiddo. I mean, that's like a big thing with my kiddo now is talking about perseverance. So I would say, like, if there's a word that is directly tied to Brian Townsend, that's it, perseverance.
Well, when I talk to parents of students of mine and players, the word that I hear all the time that they're worried about is resilience, which goes right. It's pretty much the same thing. So
You said they're worried about?
yeah, they want their kid to be resilient, and you know, we it's hard these days, right? And resilience is it's I don't think it's something you can just give somebody. I mean, you kind of have to learn through some really hard times to toughen you up, and that's one of my biggest worries as a dad is like, what if my daughter grows up and she's not with me and then she doesn't have that resilience because she's going to need it. Every kid's going to need it, you know? So it's essential, but it's one of the reasons we love sports is it kind of teaches you resilience. You know, like I'm sure you had times where you were down at halftime or, you're just ready to quit. And that's the nice thing about sports. It's such a low stakes thing. You can quit, but you'll learn from it, but nothing horrible will happen. But in real life, it's a little bit more serious. It's a lot more serious. So I was trying to think about this, like who shaped my mind growing up the most? And it's interesting. I'm obviously a little bit biased because I'm going to talk about my mom, but because I'm always looking for role models and I'm looking for people to learn from. And my mom is not like a coach. Okay. She passed away 11 years ago, but I tell a little story about her. And this is, I take so much from her when I look back at it. I don't even realize I learned all these things until maybe my 30s or 40s. But I don't know if you remember this, but my freshman year of high school, the year I think we kind of became friends, my dad died in a car accident. It was crazy. Some guy like caused a huge car accident and he ended up going to trial for it, right? And I didn't go to the trial. It was all very traumatic. I don't remember a lot of it. But we went to sentencing. And I remember the judge got a letter from my mom and he was like, I can't believe when I read this letter from the victim's mom or from the victim's wife, there was zero blame in the whole thing. Like all she wrote about was the husband that she lost and the dad that my brothers and I lost, which that's just an example. You knew my mom really well, but she always pretty much always did the right thing. One thing she always preached to us was forgiveness. And I don't know if she
Mhm.
forgave the guy or not, but it's not like she wrote some letter blaming this guy, right? And I can only imagine the kind of pain she was going through. Like she was happily married. She had 4 boys. And instead of just kind of going off on this guy, she just wrote about the guy that we lost. And the grief was crazy, right? So she ended up a couple years later becoming a personal trainer because she always preached health. And that was such a hard time for her. She realized there's really only 2 things that would get her out of that. Well, and she had to get out of it because she had 4 boys. You know what I mean? She had to persevere, right? She had to be resilient. And, but she would always preach just faith and health, like exercise and faith. And that's all she would preach. She was not, she didn't give me lectures. She did everything. I learned everything from her just by just paying attention, you know? But she got into personal training and that kind of saved her life. She ended up just focusing on other people, trying to make them healthier. and I got to work with her at that health club, and she had this just you know what she had that I think every favorite teacher and every coach has? She had, presence. Like, Coach Townsend had this. Every time I talk to Coach Townsend, he is fully present, you know? And I think that's true about every great coach and every great teacher. When you're talking to them, you feel like they're locked into what you're saying. That's why you and I get along really well. Like, we just communicate really well. Sometimes when you talk to people, especially nowadays with phones, the presence isn't there, right? And that's what I'm trying to do every day is to be fully present for whoever I'm working with, which and all these habits that I've learned kind of came from my mom. You know, she'd play tennis at 5 a.m.
It's true.
She'd do whatever she could to be, and I don't ever remember her being what I would call moody, or I'm sure she had moods, but like if she,
I got some
oh
stories
yeah,
about her being moody, but
yeah, but like I mean, with me, she was just always present, always there, and she was like that with her clients, and I think I'm doing a pretty good job of that as a coach and a teacher, and now with my clients. But like, I just love that. Like, and I realized as I've gotten older, which I would call that the flow state. Like, whenever I think about the flow state, I think about sports. I'm sure you've had games where you were like in the zone, and I think for the longest time I thought that was just kind of like somewhat luck. Like, but you can kind of train your brain to get in those modes more often. And the enemy of it is distraction. Another enemy is poor sleep,
yeah.
not moving your body. And I've just learned these things from my mom. I didn't even think I realized it's not like I said, she wasn't preaching it, but I've learned if I have great sleep, if I move my body, if I have time with no, no screens, then I can get in that mode. And that's what people need because everybody wants to feel important. Like we all need that, especially when you're working with kids. And that's why we love those teachers. That's why we love those coaches because they are like they make you feel noticed.
And that's like a thing that I feel like is missing in I don't know what age group, but like let's just say 25 and under. I don't think they have the people that can connect with these kids in a way that's meaningful. And if they do, that's awesome. But I think the average kid doesn't have someone outside of their parents that they can go to and say, like, I need to go talk, and I have this person where I can just go and just blab, and it's going to be okay. I'm accepted. I'm heard. They're focused on me. They're not distracted by all the life stuff. Like, they actually care to listen and be there for me. And I mean, yes, I do have hilarious moments about your mom and like how she was mad of us stealing all the hot pockets and all the turkey and all the bagels. But, whatever. But I know every single time I talked to her, she was just like, "So how are you? What's going on?" And I forgot your dog's name. Tiny?
Tiny
Yeah.
Tim.
So so Tiny is there and, barking all up a storm, whatever. And she's just like not even listening to that dog and just being like, "So what's up? This and blah 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 blah," and just going with it. I'm like, you got all these teenagers over your house. You got this dog over here. I'm sure you got something else that you want to go do instead of like helping us out here and eat up all your food. But she was locked in. And that's how Townsend is. He's like that at every conversation. I have my phone, whatever. I have all these notes on my phone of talk with Townsend. I have a folder in my email just for talks with Townsend where I've taken notes or some emails that he sent over and just drop in that folder because I know the dude is bringing knowledge. And when he's in that moment, he's in his zone, like you mentioned, and he is literally zoned out by the noise and is just fully focused. And you asked about like, well, you didn't really ask like a story, but like a story that, or an idea, I should say, that has helped me out is I've been at the free throw line with thousands of people watching. And the idea of being locked in to just do your task, do what's being asked of you, and persevere through the moment where it's stress all around you. You hear all these people, and be able to just focus on your one task, which is that one spot on the rim, and just aim, do your normal flow, and just hit the shot. That dude taught me so many things about do what you have to do, get into the zone. Before games, some guys just sat there, listened to music. Some guys paced. Some guys took the ball and, did their dribbling stuff. But he gave us 5 minutes. And in those 5 minutes, we all came together and then we went out. And this is before the game. So, your mindset is everything. What you have to do is way different than what I have to do. And as long as you get to the point where you are able to zone in and do the task and persevere to block the noise out, there's so much more you can accomplish. And people will definitely appreciate you that much more because they know that you're actually locked in and not distracted by all the other stuff. And kids don't have that. And then
Well,
on top
it's
of that,
almost
kids
impossible.
don't want to actually talk to people because they know they don't care. What's that?
Well, I mean, it's just really hard. Like, I was just reading this book called Search for Meaning by Arthur Brooks. I think that's maybe that's the wrong name, but it was Arthur Brooks' book, and he's talking about how nowadays teenagers and college kids are never having those meaningful conversations that don't really have an answer, like what's the meaning of life, or like,
Mm,
and then think about it. If you have 4 friends hanging out, what are the chances that all 4 are not going to be on their phone? I mean, honestly, if it's 2 people, it's hard to get 2 people. Like when we were in college, we didn't have the phones. I don't
no.
think.
Well, we did,
So
but
you had a lot of those conversations because there was nothing
they
else to
literally
do.
flipped open. So,
Yeah. So it's hard because they're not, even if they want to have the conversations, which they need to have, it's hard to be like, hey guys, let's put the phones away and let's talk about life.
yeah.
you know? So it's tough, and because of another thing with the phones is like it really does ruin their chances of being present. Their brains are just all over the place, and it's hard for them to focus on a conversation for a few minutes and really be locked in. It's just and I'm not blaming them. It's just this is how it is, and I see it even with like it makes parenting hard. Kids want our
Yeah.
attention. My daughter wants my attention, and as you know, phones and screens whenever I just watched Toy Story 5. I mean, that was like one of the big themes of the whole movie was about how tablets are kind of stealing kids' attention. So it's a challenging time for everybody, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my kid is, I wouldn't say a gamer. I think he's trying to be, but he plays a lot of games and I can't have a conversation. Even if he can, talk while playing, it's trash. He's just like, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I can do, and I'm like, dude, just turn it off, man. I can't do this. Like, just do one or the other, or I'll just talk to you in 5 minutes because you can't pause the game. Like, this is a terrible conversation and I'm getting annoyed. So I just have to walk away and come back or just tell him to turn it off right now. And that ability to focus on one thing, I would love to talk to more parents about that. And I know we're going to go through a lot of topics. Parenting right now is so hard. The parents that had to like deal with teenagers during COVID, my God, like that had to be like the hardest thing ever. So as a 10-year-old dad, it's just very difficult to be able to get through kids in general. But when you have other things, a screen, my kid loves books. He's distracted by books and can't do basic things because he's reading a book. So even in the best situations, being distracted by something it's just, you're never going to get to a place of being able to deal with the things that are happening around you if you can't focus on the one task. And I don't think kids right now have that.
And it's really affecting their relationships. And that's one thing I'm going to be preaching as Sophie gets older is like a couple things. One is we're going to find time to do nothing. It's
Yeah.
hugely important.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. If she's bored, I'm gonna be like, good. Like it's just an absolute must. And then secondly is as she gets older, she has to be calling her friends or FaceTiming her friends. The texting, I think a lot of kids think that's the same thing. It's just not. It's you have to have those conversations, and what ends up happening, and your proof of this for me is like when you have really hard times, you feel comfortable calling that person. Like if you and I were texting for years and then I'm going through some hard times, I'm gonna feel really hesitant to call you. And not to mention it would just yeah, and you that's when you have to have somebody to call because our kids, everybody's gonna have really hard times.
Right. And
And
when you don't have those people because you're not used to reaching out to them on a regular basis just to have basic conversations, when you do reach out and say, "Hey, I got some stuff going on over here, man. Can we talk?" So awkward. They feel obligated now versus like wanting to be there for you because the connection's not there.
yeah. Yeah, like, that's why you have to that's why I think we gotta teach our kids to invest in the relationship. Like, this is just a great philosophy just in life, is like, when things are going well, that's when you can have some like, put time into it, right? I'd say when you're leading kids or you're leading anybody, when things are going well, that's when you have hard conversations, and really challenge them. And then when they're beat up and, like, really struggling, that's when they just need a hug, you know? Chuck Daly, our boy Chuck Daly, coach of the Bad
Chuck,
Boys,
my day used to call him Chucky
um,
D.
I was listening to Brendan Suhr, his assistant, and I guess the Pistons lost a really hard game, like, in '89, and Brendan Suhr was all fired up. He's like, "Chuck, let's get after him." And, Chuck was like, "We're not gonna say anything to him." And Brendan Suhr was like, "What?" He's like, "We just lost a huge game. Do you think they need to hear from us right now?" He's like, "We're just gonna say good night, and then tomorrow we'll get back after it." But those guys are just as mad as us. I think that's just a great lesson in leadership because it's kids know when they mess up, and I'm not saying not to hold them accountable, but like if you lose a hard game, and obviously assuming they care a lot, which they should, that hurts, and then you come back to it a little bit. But then when things are going really well, I think that's a great time to push them really hard, you know, which is like, yeah, you're doing great, but we could be doing even better. Like, let's go. And then prepare them for what's coming up.
I think that's how you do the prequel, not the prequel, the prerequisite for teaching a kid, teaching a person how to get into the zone and be really present about the task at hand is what you just mentioned, which is like basically saying like, hey, look at the situation, look where we're at. Can we actually go ahead and push harder and be a little bit better? Because I know what our standard is. And we're teetering on that standard, but like, is there a ceiling on that standard? Can we raise it? Like, do you see where you are right now with your accomplishments? So it's not like you can't ever, per se, like win per se, but can you just continue to just get better and better every single day? And I think that I know my kid, he gets so upset when he makes a mistake. He already knows the mistake. He already knows the thing that I'm disappointed by. Me having a 45-minute long conversation with him about it does nothing. Doesn't help me because I walk away feeling bad. He walks away feeling bad and wasted 45 minutes hammering away at the same thing that he already knows he did wrong with. No. So, like you said, that downtime, stepping in, finding somewhere to connect, I think is huge. Just knowing that it's not the moment where you made a mistake that we have to have a conversation, but we can talk when you're doing all the things. You got all A's and B's, you got all A's, whatever. You crushed it. Great, man. Like, so what else? Like, what are you doing now that you weren't doing first semester that's made you raise your grades? And you could talk about this fun thing and, like just take advantage of the moments and not just, oh, cool. He can just go read his book and sit in his room for 2 hours and Oh, cool. Dinner. All right. Great. Haven't seen you in an hour and a half, but here's some food. And the connection's dead. It's dead.
Well, not to mention, I mean, just all those conversations that they have with their parents are, it's just practice. I mean, our kids are going to be dating one day. I mean, that's communication, that's presence, you know? I'm not looking forward to
Yeah.
that day, but like communication skills are presence and communication go together, you know? And that's where my mom thrived. That's where Townsend thrives. And that's where all the best teachers and coaches and leaders and parents thrive is they're present and they're really good at avoiding distractions. And nowadays, like attention is the most important thing, right? They always say attention is the number one currency in the world, more than time, more than anything, right? And if you don't train your attention, your brain, like you're just going to be controlled by everything else, whether we're talking about parents or the kids. And it hurts your relationships, you know? Like I'm so thankful
Yeah.
that my mom passed away, but like when she was here for those, I think I was 35 at the time, she was present for all those years. I didn't have to worry about it. But nowadays it's like sometimes we have a hard time getting anybody's attention. And and
Especially
it
when you really
and
need
it
it.
makes you resentful.
Yes. Yeah. I can tell you from experience, like in those moments where you really wanted someone to be there, but you haven't worked on developing that relationship to that level, if you don't reach out to them in that moment where you really need them, the next time you're definitely not going to reach out to them. Unless you've worked on the relationship, unless you know that person is going to put the time in to actually care to listen to you, they're off the boat. They're no longer in the inner circle now. So they're an associate. They're no longer in the inner circle, and that's not that's not good.
Well,
Like
I
not
mean,
what you said, but like diving more into that and the idea of that. Like, there's an actual story behind it.
talking about presence and attention.
Presence, attention, being able to devote the time, and you walked away with some knowledge from that.
I mean, honestly, I probably learned most of this just through observing. I mean, I'm a very visual person, and I just pay a lot of attention to, like I notice good and bad, and I just always remember my favorite teachers, my favorite coaches, my mom. I just the way they just commanded, like my mom kind of commanded the floor of the gym she worked at, you know, and she just, I mean, and this is one reason I'm a big into like even for kids meditation or breathing exercises is it helps you stay present. You know, when you're usually when you're usually when you're present you're having fun, right?
Hmm.
Um, I think about like my boring classes or like how you're just staring at the clock and you're like, I cannot wait to get out of here. This is dreadful. And let's be honest, sometimes we've had conversations with people that were like this, like, well, this person's paying no attention. I can't wait till this conversation is over. And, so like training your brain to be present is very doable, but I think a lot of kids don't know how to do it. And it's one of the best things you can ever do because that's why they call it the present, because it's a gift, right? So it's, and the days of phones, it's a huge challenge, but it can be done. It can definitely be done.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
that's something I'm working on with my kid. And she's only 5, but I mean, she was doing breathing exercises, and I'll give Stephanie credit for this. She was doing breathing exercises when she was like 3. And I was like, I don't think a 3-year-old can do that. And she got her to do it. I was like, oh, apparently a 3-year-old can do that.
Nice.
So it's definitely
It's like the
doable.
day. Yeah, it's like the day my kid came home. Man, he comes in and he's had a good day. Nothing's wrong. But all of a sudden he comes down He sits down, crisscross applesauce. He does this little thing. He has his hands. He does this. And I was like, what's this guy doing? I just watch him. I try not to interrupt, but at some point I'm like, okay, like we gotta talk about this, man. You can't just come home and sit down and do this pose. Like I know what I'm looking at, but I finally said, hey man, like what's up? And he's like, you interrupted me. It's like, okay, what did I do? He's like, I was meditating. I was like, there we go. Okay, like that is awesome. I did not know you knew this. Stuff like that, man. I think
That's
that
awesome.
if that came through to him just from one time with, I think he was in, I don't know what class, I'm guessing PE, just one time, and that settled in, he still meditates. There's, he does little things where like, we're watching a soccer game and whatever World Cup team we're watching that he said he wanted to win, they lost. And he walks out, he storms out, and he goes in his room, but he didn't like slam the door or anything. He just walked out. I'm still hanging out. He comes back out 2 minutes later, and I was like, what were you doing back there? And he goes, I just need to go back in there and just calm down. I was like, so what'd you do? He's like, I was breathing, I was taking deep breaths, I meditate a little bit, and I'm good now. I was like, craziness. That's
Well,
awesome.
and the fact that he reads so much is a huge. If we can get our kids to read, that's that. I mean, it's not quite meditation, but it really just slows them down. It's hugely important. All right, I figure we'll wrap this up. But I was thinking, you know, this is on my mind a lot because I'm trying to help kids build confidence. And anytime they do something brand new, it's scary, right? And with this our first podcast, so I was like, if I was coaching myself, what would I say? But what I always say is, man, when you're doing something brand new, like just doing it is a success. It could be terrible, like, in fact, we should do this. We should go find some of our favorite podcasters and try to find their very first episode
Mm.
and just see how good it is.
Even, and there's like also like a turning point where it just clicks, you know? I mean, being in the zone, it's not just something that you can turn on and turn off. Like it comes from practice. It comes from like all the things. So even when it works in this podcast, we're still going to be like, can we do better until we finally get into that groove and like it makes sense. So like, I'm expecting people to say, hey, dude, did you think about, did you see this? Did you hear that? Like, might want to work on that. So
Hey, that
people
reminds me
bring
of
it.
that famous speech, "The Man in the Arena." I think it was
Okay.
Teddy Roosevelt, but LeBron
Yeah.
writes "The Man in the Arena" on his shoes. And basically what he's
I know
saying is
that.
like, I don't care about any criticism from anybody that's not in the arena, that's not playing the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's just a good way to go about it because, and it's like when it comes to confidence, like you got to have courage if you want confidence. So
Got to
people
have
can have their,
courage to have
peop,
confidence.
people can have their ideas and they might be right. But the fact of the matter is if somebody's doing something that's uncomfortable and new, they already won. That's a win. It's when we don't do something because you talked about failure earlier. When you don't do something because you're scared, I mean, you're still learning. Even then, you're still learning. But if you're doing something because you're scared, good for you. Doesn't really matter how it goes. That's a win.
Yeah.
So we
So
won.
if you had to critique this podcast, this first episode of this amazing podcast, what's one thing that you would say that you would change? I have one right off the bat, ready to
Go
go
for
for
it.
sure.
Go.
I can tell you right now, the setup you guys see behind me is not going to be there. The setup I have in front of me, god awful. The position I'm in right now has to be fixed. There's so many little things that I need to like just get right. And like, I think this is something that ties into what we're doing. I prepared. I prepared multiple times to get to where I am right now for this podcast, but things were really not working. And so there's a lot of things I tried to just tweak and tweak and tweak. And we have a lot more tweaking to do over here to make this setup and this environment right. Because again, I'll go back to this probably 6,000 more times. If I'm at the free throw line and I'm in a weird position with my feet, my elbow, my hand, my everything, if I'm not doing the same thing in a comfortable way that's getting the results that I need, I got to tweak it. And this is not comfortable. This does not make me feel like I'm going to make the free throw at all.
Well,
We'll get there.
if I was coaching you, I'd say, and I think you know this because you're older than a kid, but like
It's
I've noticed that
unnecessary.
some really high achievers can be really critical of themselves,
Mm.
which I think is good because that's how we get better. I can be critical of myself for sure, but also I think everybody. Don't you think it's easier to criticize yourself than other people? I feel like it is. If you're a high, if you really want to do things well, be a little nicer to yourself. That's what I'd say.
Man, I think people are afraid if they critique themselves too much, then they, it's like if you critique yourself on something, then you feel like you're harder on yourself than you are on other people because you know the little things. I know what I'm seeing behind this screen, and it's garbage. But somebody else is looking at it being like, yeah, you're fine. But I think that when we talk about ourselves, it's easier, but like it's also hard because you go into a zone of like you know how easy it could be to go down the rabbit hole of being negative about yourself versus being like, okay, I have this one thing, I'm going to fix the one thing. But somebody else may say this and that. Look around. Are you seeing this? This is terrible. A bad coach would do all that for sure. A terrible one really would.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just obviously you want to self-evaluate, but I would say if it's game one, it's like preseason game one, you showed up, you played hard, it's good to go. And then just make adjustments from there. It'll just get better and better.
Yeah, that's a part of me that as a coach, I'm like, okay, where are the wins? Where are the wins? Because we can all be negative, you're right. But there's some wins within a loss or some wins within step up to the plate, step up to the free throw line, and completely just bricking it, you know. We're in practice. We're practice mode right now. We'll get there. I'm okay with it. But I know what I gotta fix. I can tell you that
Got it.
though.
Well, if you got to fix the background, that's no big deal. That's easy.
This is that, but there's some other things too.
Well, all right. Well, I'm excited about this podcast.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. We'll get some guests on, and yeah, I love how we talked about the mind. Like, I really want to talk about the mindset a lot,
Hmm.
changing habits, building habits. I'm definitely gonna bring in some health stuff,
Yeah.
um, and then kind of revolve all that around relationships because I don't know. I think relationships are the most fun part of life. Also, the most stressful sometimes too. So it's a good thing to work on.
Yeah. I like you said, I mean, I think it's all connected. And when we're able to have tools to be able to help us out, we're a lot better, we're a lot healthier. So
Exactly.
let's
It
give the
all
people
fits
the
together.
tools, man.
Yeah, man. The Better Game Podcast, first one in the books. Thank you, brother.
Ooh, ooh. Good stuff, dude.
All right, man.
Thanks for sticking out.